Well, it's another Saturday, and it's another $5 in the World session. There's a book project I'm working on that incorporates sayings and ideas that my dad taught us, that he taught so many other people, words he lived by, adages he lived by, approaches to life that guide him to 101 years of amazing living, changed lives everywhere he went, made people be their best self or help them become their best selves. And I think his ideas, his thinking about life are useful. I mean, for thriving, for living fulfilling lives. And I think the ideas he had about overcoming adversity, seeking opportunity, being generous, being thoughtful, being kind, you know, doing the next right thing, integrity, for one of, probably the best word for it, are useful today too. And I think it's in short supply in a lot of areas. So that's why I'm writing these down, first for the family and then hopefully for a wider audience. So this one is about how to, the power of the written word. Dad was a big believer in writing things down. And I'm going to share the number of ways that he did that and why, and see what you think of it. See if maybe these are some habits and practices you can incorporate in what you do during your life, and maybe gain some traction in areas that maybe you have struggled with, or how to get more out of what you're already doing. However it goes, I hope it helps. I hope that you like and share the YouTube channel, and I hope you feel welcome to give input, feedback, advice, and even some criticism if it's necessary, or if you just feel like it. But I'm glad you're here, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to do this. This one's called Put It in Writing. Our family did not abide by the adage, don't do business with family. Dad and his relatives loaned and borrowed amongst themselves on a regular basis. The key was they had clarity about the nature of the exchange. They made it very clear at the outset whether it was a loan or a gift, and then they would put it in writing. Dad would say that if something was important enough to say, it was important enough to write down. A big reason for business to turn spiteful in families and friendships is this lack of a clear understanding of what is offered and what is expected. It is pretty easy to develop misunderstandings and hard feelings when there isn't a common understanding at the beginning. Dad held to this premise in other areas of life as well. I've written elsewhere about his belief in setting goals, but it wasn't enough to think of them and commit to them. He believed it was critical to write them down as well. The science tends to back up this practice. Humans are visual, and seeing something regularly keeps us motivated for it. He had his goals written out and he reviewed them daily. He carried an abbreviated list of his goals in his wallet as well. He could take out that card and reaffirm every goal on there whenever he needed to, wherever he was. He kept a notebook by his bed for those middle of the night ideas. Instead of laying there all night ruminating, he found that writing it down in the moment would provide the ease of mind to go back to sleep. If the idea still looked good in the morning, then he could work with it. He didn't want to take the chance of losing a good idea. As a business owner, people expected a lot from him. He had to make countless decisions a day, resolve disputes, set a course for the business, and so many other mental exercises. He was on the move quite a bit in those days. So when people had him available, then they would unload all of their questions, requests, complaints, and ideas all at once. And then throughout the day as they dreamed up something else. If he didn't think of a way to manage the demands on his attention and time, then he would be in a constant state of reaction. He did a couple of extremely effective things. One thing he did was to both increase access to himself and limit it. He had daily check-in calls with his management team at a set time. He established a time frame during the day for when he would be available for the one-on-one interaction his people would need in person or on the phone. He also told his people that they needed to put their requests, ideas, etc. in writing to make it easier to follow and to help them organize their thoughts. In these routines, he assured access to him so that the people wouldn't be unclear as to when or if they would be able to speak with him. He also made boundaries that protected him from unlimited distraction. He could manage day to day and still reserve time and energy for the critical planning and decision making a business owner needs to engage with the most. He would tell them after a certain set time or after those calls were done, anything else that came up, unless it was a bona fide emergency, would have to wait till the next day or the next call. So that would kind of keep people focused and keep people cognizant of their time and his. In raising us, he taught my brother and I to set our goals annually and to write them down. We would talk with him about ours, and he would share his with us. We continued up to the last couple of years of his life to do this. Chuck and I have started doing this together again. There is something powerful about taking complex issues and putting them in writing. It, in some sense, stabilizes the ideas swirling around in our minds and makes them more actionable. I find note taking during lectures or interviews enhances my memory of the interaction. Dad would do that too. One of his best practices for clearing his mind of spiraling concerns, as well as to develop a sense of perspective, was to write down the problem or problems that had him so preoccupied in the moment. He'd put that page in an envelope and write the date on it. He would open the envelope 6 months later and see if the issues were still top of mind for him. Most of the time, they were not. This reminded him that problems tended to feel bigger than they really are, and that we shouldn't let them paralyze us or overly worry us. For the mindsets he would want to nurture on a daily basis, he would write or have printed sayings that would promote the ideas he wanted to live by, daily reminders to live up to his ideals. I remember the signs on our bathroom mirrors. One said, "Be calm and cheerful," and the other one said, "You become what you think about." He would also handwrite notes for the moment as an encouragement to us. He must have developed these habits out of understanding that the written word is powerful. His reading played such a critical role in his character formation. Many of the authors that wrote about success also had faith in the written word. He didn't think much of his handwriting, so that limited the number of letters he would write, but the ones he did write were amazing. The practice of writing things down, sending notes, and goal setting have passed down to so many people who listen to him. We have so much going on up in our minds. This habit of writing things down to remember them, consider them, commit to them is powerful and critical way to maintain healthy relationships as well as a good attitude. If it matters to you, put it in writing. So that is my chapter on Dad's philosophy about writing things down, and it was all kind, as you could tell from those notes, it was all manner of things that he would write down. If he heard something cool, he would write it down for later. He kind of had a list of ideas if he ever had to give a speech or a proposal. He had kind of a running, a running list of things that he didn't want to forget. He would write down ideas as they came to him, or if he heard somebody come up with one, and then he would think about it more later. But he didn't want to let something slip through the cracks. The goal setting was a huge thing to him. I told you before, he read the book Think and Grow Rich, which is all about setting goals, by Napoleon Hill, written back in the 1920s or 1930s, I think. Might be a little more modern than that, maybe the 50s, but it's still held in high regard to this very day. And it was really a big thing on very specific, clear understanding of what your goals were. Write them down, look at them every day, pray about them, think about them, work on plans to implement them. He was big on that, and so am I, and so is my brother, and so many other people he interacted with when they saw how successful it could be, and just how, and that's, I really like that idea about writing down your issues somewhere and then looking at them again several months later and realizing, gosh, what seemed like such a big deal at the time isn't anymore. It's such a great perspective setter. I'm a big fan of journaling. I do that daily. Just think about, things for the day, what happened, what didn't happen, what I want to have happen. And also, because I have an opportunity to do some public speaking and some teaching, I do the same thing. I have a handful of journals and notebooks around, for different, to keep track of different ideas and different things as I go along. If I'm at a lecture, if I'm at a seminar, if I'm at a meeting, if I'm with a client, I'm writing things down in my notebooks. I just think it's a great way to help remember, and in some cases it shows respect to the speaker. So I recommend all of those things. I like that idea about having a notebook by your bed at night, so that if you do wake up in the middle of the night and something's nagging at you, if you don't deal with it in some tangible way, your mind will not shut off. If you ever toss and turn with ideas just going round and round, try that. Your mind will unclench once you've done some action in the direction of the idea or the worry or the concern or the thought. And of course, sometimes you get inspirational ideas and you don't want to lose those. Sometimes it's just gibberish. When you wake up the next day, you realize it seemed cool because you were only half awake. But better safe than sorry. And it really does help with the wake up in the middle of the night with a start because you forgot something or you don't want to forget something or you're worried about something. I'm telling you, writing it down and acknowledging it to yourself goes a long ways towards helping you relax. Um, the business stuff, I saw him have all kinds of business deals with his sister and sorry about that, his sister and brother-in-law, and with his parents, and they with him. And Dad taught my brother and I to do the same thing. We loan money to each other. We borrow money from each other. We've gotten in business deals together, and we were always very careful about writing it down. And it's funny because the conventional wisdom says, a handshake should be enough, especially for friends and family. Paperwork's for strangers. I think it's almost the opposite. I think it's always there. The more important the relationship is, the more important it is to have a clear understanding of what it is you're agreeing to and what you're expecting. And so we write that stuff down. And we're clear. Is this a gift? Am I just handing this off to you? Or is it a loan? And if it is a loan, what are the terms? How often do you got to make payments? What's the interest rate? And stuff like that. It just takes all the fuss and all the worry or wonder out of it. So if you are together at Thanksgiving and you have a payment schedule for that loan, your aunt or your uncle or your dad or your brother doesn't have to ask you, so when are you going to make another payment? Everybody already knows. It doesn't even have to be discussed anymore. It's just there and settled. And of course, if there is an issue, if you're a little short or they are or something comes up, you can talk about it in relation to an already accepted agreement and make arrangements around that. But you're not making it up as you go along. And you're not letting your feelings and your concerns and your worries drive your conversations. It's just that famous expression, business is business. And that way you can have a business discussion and keep your family and your friendship and all that stuff over here where it belongs. And it doesn't have to interact. They don't have to get in the way of each other. I strongly recommend if you do any kind of interactions with friends or family, involve any kind of obligations, write it down. So everyone agrees as you're writing, that is what I meant. Because sometimes it is misunderstood. They don't expect to do something, or you don't expect to do something, and the other person does. And again, you know how damaging that can be when there's unmet expectations. So strongly recommend that. Same thing with kids. If you've got agreements with them, if there's some sort of chores they've got, or there's some sort of goal they've got, if they do such and such a thing, they're going to get something. Write it all down so everybody has a clear understanding. They can refer back to it so that if it happens or doesn't happen, it's not a debate. It's just a matter of checking the record. I'm telling you, if it's important enough to think about, it's important enough to write it down. I hope this helps. It's been a game changer or a lifesaver for me over the decades. Business deals, family arrangements, setting goals, preserving ideas, sharing ideas, all that stuff. Even this book project, all those sayings and all those lessons and all those stories swirling around up in my head. It's oral tradition in our family. We tell them back and forth, and anyone that knows us hears us say so many times a day. My dad used to say, but it's important enough to think about. It's important enough to write it down, and that's really one of the main drivers of this book project. Is this stuff is important to me. I hope it means something to you as well. And so I'm taking the time to write it down, and I'm going to refine it. And I'm hoping sometime in 2026 to have something that I can consider finished and present to friends, family, and maybe a larger audience. But for now, it's production and sharing. And I hope that I appreciate those of you that are doing this, checking this out with me, and getting back with me on what you think. That's it for today. I will see you next week.